So everyone is like, Jacob, what the fuck? Why are you stealing all of our cows and stuff? And Jacob's like, I guess that's my cue to run away with my wife. So he takes, his wives. So he takes all of his wives and all of his kids and all of his cows and all of his goats and all of that shit, and he just runs away as fast as he can. And Laban, the guy whose cows he's been stealing for this past time, is like, what the fuck, where did Jacob go? So 3 days later, he decides to start chasing him, and he tracks him down 7 days later up in the mountains, and he's like, hey, Jacob, what the fuck? Why did you run away? Also, you appear to have stolen more than just my cows and my daughters and my children. You've also stolen a whole bunch of my household gods, which are like these little idols and shit. And Jacob's like, what? I don't even know what you're talking about. And he actually honestly doesn't know what he's talking about. This is one of the few times that Jacob actually tells the truth in Genesis. But what happened is that Rachel stole all of the household gods, and she put them in the saddlebags on the camel that she's sitting on. And Jacob is like, yeah, fine, look around. Look for the household gods. You're not going to find them. So Laban goes and looks around in all the tents and everything, but he doesn't look on the camel because Rachel's sitting on it. And he's like, hey, Rachel, move. I need to look in the camel. And Rachel's like, I can't, I'm on my period. So he's like, okay, well, I guess I don't know where the hell they are then. So he just kind of calls off the search. And then he and Jacob are kind of still really hate each other, so they build up a pile of rocks and agree never to cross it ever. So that solves that problem. So Jacob keeps going back to the homeland of Abraham, his great-grandfather or whatever. And on the way, he finds out that he's in the land of Esau. And he's like, holy shit, that guy I dicked over a bunch of times. He's going to find me and he's going to kill me. And he finds out that Esau is on the way to come meet him with like 400 men. And he's like, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit. So he takes like all of his cows and all of his servants and everything and just starts sending them 200 at a time towards Esau. And each one that Esau finds is supposed to say, hey, this is a present from Jacob. Don't kill him. He's that way. So he keeps sending these and keeps sending them. And finally, Esau meets up with him. But the night before, for some reason, after Jacob has already sent all this shit away, this dude just shows up and starts wrestling him, just out of the blue. Like, the Bible repeats itself a lot. This is one time where it never repeats itself. It's like Jacob sends all this shit away, and then a guy starts wrestling him. Doesn't say where he comes from, but this guy just starts wrestling him. So Jacob is wrestling this dude, and like their sweaty bodies are doing the double man tango, and he starts to get really tired, and the guy reaches out and like breaks his thigh. But he's still wrestling. He's like wrestling the fuck out of this dude. And then he realizes that it's God. And then he's like, oh shit. But God doesn't kill him because God likes him for some reason. Then God disappears. And he's like, by the way, your name is Israel now, which Jacob just completely ignores. So the next day Esau shows up. And Jacob is like, hey man, don't kill me. And Esau's like, whatever, dude, it's fine. So they hug and they cry and everything like pansies. And then Esau is like, here, what the fuck are all these things that you kept sending me, all these gifts? And Jacob's like, they were gifts so that you wouldn't kill me. And Esau's like, no, take them back. And Jacob's like, no, you take them. And they just go back and forth doing that until Esau's finally like, all right, I'll take all your shit. So he takes all the stuff, and Jacob is free to go on his own. And he goes and establishes himself in Canaan, which is where his grandfather and his dad and everybody lived. So he builds some altars and shit. And one day, one of his daughters goes out walking around, and this dude grabs her and rapes her, and then falls in love with her, and decides that he wants to marry her. So he sends like a bunch of dudes to Jacob to be like, hey man, here's a bunch of offerings. Why can I marry your daughter? Also, can we marry all of your daughters? And then you guys can have our daughters. It's fine. We don't give a shit about our daughters. And Jacob isn't actually there at the time, so all his sons come outside, and they find out that their sister's been raped, and they're like, oh. Yeah, we're totally well disposed towards you guys. How about this? How about you guys circumcise yourselves and all of your servants, just snip all those cocks, just snip everybody's cocks, and then, yeah, we'll do what you say. We'll marry everybody. Everybody's going to get married. And the guys are like, all right, well, I guess the skin off the outside of our penises is a small price to pay for marriages. So they go back and they circumcise everybody. Just everybody's getting circumcised. People who don't even have penises are getting circumcised. This is a circumcision festival. And as soon as they finish doing that, all of Jacob's sons show up and murder all of them. They wait until after they're finished mutilating their genitals, and they show up and they kill everyone in the city, and they take all of their stuff, and then they leave. That is the ultimate dick move right there. Why didn't they just kill them when they showed up? Why did they have to wait until they used medieval technology to chop at their genitals? That is upsetting. Okay, so then Jacob finds out about this, and he's like, oh shit, guys, why did you do that? Now everybody's gonna hate me. We gotta get the fuck out of here. So they get the fuck out of there. And they go up into the mountains, and like a couple of people die, and Jacob buries them, and then his wife dies in childbirth, and Jacob buries her, and right as she's dying, she tries to name the kid, and Jacob is like, no, fuck you, his name is Benjamin, because Jacob is a dick even when his wife is dying. And then it gives like a whole long list of all the kids that Jacob had, and all the kids that Esau has, and I do not give a fuck about that, and neither should you. So, then, after that, for some reason, Jacob has a favorite son. His name is Joshua. Is it Joshua? No, it's Joseph. See, that's as much as I know. So he loves Joseph so much that he makes him an amazing technicolor dreamcoat. And he gives it to him, and all of Jacob's other kids hate the shit out of this guy because of his sweet coat. And also because he keeps having dreams where all of the other sons bow down to him and worship his glory. So that's not a good way to make friends amongst your brothers. So they all decide that they're going to take him out into the middle of the forest and murder him. But right at the last second, they decide to show mercy and instead throw him into a ditch and then sell him to Egyptians. So that's what they do. They sell him to the Egyptians. Then they take his coat and they dip it in blood and they take it back to Jacob and they're like, hey, look what we found. Your son's dead. And Jacob's like, oh, fuck. Now I gotta wear my shame pants. So then we cut away for some reason to this dude, Judah, who has 3 kids. Onan, and some other guy nobody cares about. So first he gets and he marries him to this chick. But God hates so he dies. So then Judah goes to his second son, Onan, and he's like, hey, fuck your brother's wife. And Onan's like, I'm not really down for that. But he gets forced to, go into a room and everything. So he's in there, and he's like, oh, I'm going to have sex with you. And no, I'm going to jerk off over here. So he jacks off, and his seed hits the ground, and then God kills him for that. So that's 2 sons down. So then Judah goes over to this chick, and he's like, I'm sorry that my sons keep dying as soon as they're about to have sex with you. How about you marry my 3rd son? But then he completely fails to deliver his 3rd son. So this chick gets pissed off, dresses up as a whore, sleeps with Judah, then Judah finds out after she's stolen all of his shit while he was asleep, and then he's like, oh, well, I guess I have to forgive you because I didn't give you my son to begin with. And so this has no bearing on the rest of the story. Anyway, we go back to Joseph, who's in Egypt at this point in service of the Pharaoh. And the Pharaoh really likes him because God really likes him. So the Pharaoh decides to give him all of his shit once he dies. But then the Pharaoh's wife really wants to bone Joseph. Really, really bad. And she's like, bone me. And Joseph is like, no. And then she's like, bone me. And then Joseph is like, no. And then she's like, fine, I'm going to make the Pharaoh really pissed off at you and he's going to throw you in jail. And Joseph is like, fuck. So he goes into jail. And then for some reason, the jailkeeper decides to make Joseph president of the jail. Like, he's in charge of everybody for some reason. This is a shitty jailkeeper right here. It's like, hey, here's a new prisoner. Why don't I make him in charge of all of my duties? So he does. And then the Pharaoh is in a kind of throwing people in jail mood, so he throws his butler and his baker into jail too. And Joseph meets up with him, and he's like, hey, dudes, what's up? And they're like, well, we have some dreams that we need interpreted. And so they tell Joseph his dreams. There's so many guys whose names start with J. Christ. So they tell him his dreams, and Joseph's like, okay, so Butler, you're going to get released in 3 days, and Baker, you're going to get hung in 3 days. And then it turns out that he's completely right about both of those things, but it doesn't help Joseph get out of jail at all. And that's where he's left at this point in the story. And the rest is a story for another time.